was because there was a North Korean hacker group that stole a couple $1 billion worth of Ethereum or cryptocurrency, and they shuffled most of it through Tornado Cash. And the U.S. did not like that whatsoever. Now, funny thing is, I think they used so much money and they couldn't launder it all because there's just so much. And so they kind of just figured out that, okay, these are these guys, and these guys are the ones that laundered the money. They kind of connected the dots, and I think the North Korean group, they fessed up to it. Well, North Korea doesn't play ball with the U.S. like most of the other countries, do. So there's nobody to extradite. There's nobody to charge. There's nothing that they can do. Their hands are tied. So what do? They go after Tornado Cash. And since Tornado Cash isn't a company, a person, or anything that, or a country, right? Alex from Hedron, the creator, he brought up a good point. They didn't ban, or they didn't go after any of those three things, person, company, or a country. They banned a smart contract. They sanctioned a smart contract. And well, what does that mean? So if you interact with it as a citizen of the United States, you could, I think it's like 30 years in jail. Like, what? So effectively, they forced the hand of people that obviously all of us in America typically have to go through a centralized exchange to get into crypto, right? There's obviously you can go through peer-to-peer in cash transactions with your buddies and stuff, but the majority of us, we just use a centralized exchange. Okay, and so sanctioning that smart contract basically put a stop to U.S. users using that stuff, Tornado Cash and everything. And
are there any checks and balances there? Like, is there anything, like, could there be, suits? Could there be, constitutional things involved? Like, do we have any recourse with this?
I think what's going to be funny is people are Tornado Cashing ETH, and then they're just sending it to everybody. So there was ETH sent to like Jimmy Fallon, Shaq, Brian Armstrong was sent ETH, Tornado ETH, just a whole bunch of high-profile people. And so you could probably see that just, you're just throwing it in their face that, this is irrational. You're not going to be able to sustain this or enforce this because, people can just send you Tornado ETH and just wreck your entire Coinbase account. Like, it's not going to work.
Very ham-fisted, sounds like.
Yeah, so there's probably going to be a little bit of a walk back, perhaps. The thing with Circle, there was only $70,000 that was frozen, which was just in the Tornado Cash contract. So I don't think that there's been any funds that have been frozen from users' wallets outside of Tornado Cash yet. Don't hold me to that, but as far as I know, it's just the $70K that was on contract that were invalidated. So you can't exchange those coins anymore for USDC, or I don't even think they can move. So
wow.
The bad thing about this is this can have broader implications. What if the DOJ doesn't like DAI anymore, the DAI stablecoin? What if they just sanction that like they did with Tornado Cash?
Well, what if the North Koreans start using DAI, for example, and give them a reason to, and then that in the escalation like that?
Exactly. So the whole thing about, obviously you'd still be able to use DAI, right? It probably won't work because Circle will probably invalidate a lot of tokens, a lot of the USDC. Maybe that's, they did this with Tornado Cash. They probably do that with DAI. They probably might allow people to take their coins out of DAI first, because otherwise they just have a gigantic hole and basically rob those people of that money. But besides the point, the contract would still run, but it would probably be just a headache for U.S. users to use DAI. I mean, you wouldn't be able to use it. They sanctioned DAI, so you find that in your wallet, you're gonna have a problem with your centralized exchange. possibly.
Got to stop somewhere, right? They got to be like, okay, you can't just keep sanctioning smart contracts. Like, there's got to be
Yeah, yeah.
some billionaires got to start, start suing the government, don't they?
I would imagine. You know, clarity is better than regulation, right? So having more red tape and stuff, it doesn't make things better. But having clarity on things that already exist probably will make things better. So clarity on defining cryptocurrency and tax law and um, how to tax it and shit like that, that would probably be really nice. And to have it clearly defined and what it is and have it actually like, so we know what the hell is going on, that'd probably be great. But the sanctions and stuff that doesn't really help anybody, right? And uh, the tornado cash stuff is just is more valuable than just laundering money. I mean, I think we've all heard Richard saying, hey, privacy is needed anyways, just so you can pay your employees, so you can pay, go through your friends and pay them without them seeing all of your financial history, which is
Yeah,
that's not ideal. You don't
it's a
show
human
people
right, nothing else.
Yeah, you don't go up and say, hey, I'm going to pay you some money here. Look, here's all my bank statements. We don't do that. That's just not what goes on. So
Well, how do we do that now? How do we pay employees? How do we have privacy on Ethereum? What are options now?
so you could have the technical wherewithal to have a fork of Tornado Cash for yourself, and you don't verify the code, and you just see money going into a smart contract, and then on the way out, it's hard to see where that money goes out of the smart contract if you look on Etherscan. Um, but for the average user, you could do something like that. But it's you could just use one of the smaller ones, but then the anonymity set is just not big enough. Like you could use Hex NATO, which is a hex tornado cache that's been around since the beginning. You could use something like that, but nobody uses it, so they would just know that you're the only one. You know what I mean?
Mm, okay,
So
it needs adoption before the more adoption it has, the more useful it is.
exactly, yeah. So the more users, the more obfuscated it is, the less chances that they'll be able to figure out that your coins are these coins or not your coins. So if you're the only one paying, if you're the only one playing in the playpen, they'll be able to know it's you. But if you're playing in a group, they don't know which one is you. You're obfuscated. So
So does that sort of apply to people say, okay, a way to get some somewhat privacy is don't use your own wallet, send it from an exchange because the exchange wallet has lots of stuff going on. Is that a way to do it now?
I mean, you could, but that's not the. I think that's the antithesis of crypto, right? Because you're going to a centralized exchange, so you'd like to be able to do that trustlessly without having your coins being frozen or waiting 2 hours for Coinbase to you know um, allow your transactions to go through 25 blocks to then send it out. And it's just, I don't know. Yes, you could do that, but is it ideal? Probably not. So
Yeah, you're definitely giving something up there with of course using centralized party and stuff.
and then of course they see everything that you're doing, so there's that as well.
Yes, and of course, if it's KYC, I think it's maybe one way to look at it too is other than centralized portion of it, receiving it, whoever you're doing it through, Coinbase or whatever, they have KYC. They can tie your address, your funds coming in with who you are. The other side, so maybe it provides some protection on on sending it to someone's side as far as like making it somewhat private or less able to look at. But on the sending side, you're giving up your privacy on that side.
Yeah, and just to put things into perspective, yeah, exactly. They'll charge you a fee for doing that stuff. Yeah, so and it's probably a greater fee than the Tornado Cash, charge because